The other thing you're scaling right now is the list of your excuses. So you say you've tried everything, but why are you still stuck? Business is stalling, you're struggling to grow. We hear this a lot. The key factor here is you're not changing how you're running the business. This is what we see in most MSPs that we consult with. So the leader of the business is still running the business as though it is a startup business. You're guaranteeing your growth off referrals and people that you have relationships with. Those can only go so far. Once you then start to plateau, to start thinking about how are you going to grow this business. So there's two angles to this. There's one, you only have so many hours a day. You only have 60 hours a week. You could only do so many tasks inside your business. You need to start delegating all those tasks and actually letting people deliver that. What does that mean? Getting out the way. Make sure you've understood what the things are that you're doing today that you need to do tomorrow. A great exercise is getting 2 sheets of paper or using your Outlook calendar and start color coding and writing down the things that you're doing every day. Now make another list of those things that you need not to be doing. You need to actually make yourself redundant in those tasks. Form those tasks, process those tasks, document them, however you want to do it, then delegate them and make sure that they know what that judge box area is. Then move out the way and let them get on with it. Don't keep interfering. Don't keep trying to drag it back. Stop trying to get involved and let them get on with it. Now, that will let you do the things that you need to do that are going to make the difference to your business, where you want to go. Stop firefighting. Stop doing that daily routine where you get to the end of the day and you think, where did those 12 hours go? We need to make sure we're making a difference to where we're going tomorrow, not just firefight today. So really think about what are those 5 things that you need to do and get rid of, because actually you don't need to be doing them. One of the fastest ways to cap your growth is not planning. We need to make sure we're planning in the business. Where do we want it to go? What do we want in the next 12, 24, 36 months? If we have this down on paper, we can then actually align ourselves to it, align our decisions, align our conversations, align our budgets to those plans. Often we see people don't have an organizational plan and structure of where you want to be. They may have something down about where they are today, and most of that's around the people. Where are the people sat in the business? Our consulting would say, let's use traction. Let's use the organizational chart of traction and put roles down. So what roles do you have in your MSP today? What roles do you think you'll have in 12 months' time? That might change, for instance, because of leadership. You may decide you're going to take on X amount of new customers, which equals users, endpoints. Now means we need more technicians, which now means we need more leadership. So having that understanding of where those different lines are going to start to appear over the next 12, 24, 36 months allows us to start making decisions about who are going to fill those seats. Filling them seats is not a quick thing. We need to make sure we've got a pathway to that. And those individuals know that's where we're taking them. And then we can start to be actually committing to time and mentoring and training to get them to that point. So then they're ready for that next 12, 24 months jump. And you know where you're going and then where you sit in the organization, because you're going to have to step up to the next level. And so you might need some training and coaching and mentoring from the outside world. My best advice for this is don't build the team for the problems you have now, or trying to fit the people into the team. Often I see people get sideswiped. We don't want to be doing this. We need to build the team for where we're going now. We're not building a family, we're building a sports team. What do I mean by this? We want to create a family environment. We want to create a fun environment, exciting environment, but we also want to make sure we deliver. Sports teams deliver. They still have fun. They still have a team ethical part of their role. They still perform as a team together. There's nobody standing out. Everybody's helping everybody. That's what we want to create in a business. We don't want to just create a family where we allow people to stay around even if they're not performing. You're not tracking capacity, you're tracking utilization at best. One difference in maturity we see when leading technical teams is, are we actually looking at the capacity of the team? I don't consult on any service desk that says they're not busy. Everybody is busy in the MSP world, but actually, what gear are they running in? We talk about, are they running in 2nd gear or 5th gear? We don't want people always running in 5th gear, but we need to know where they're at. We've always got lots of tickets, always got lots of work, but are you forward planning for capacity? We know that at best, you're looking at 3 months, maybe 6 months of bringing on a technician that can actually work in the MSP world, but it's probably more like 12 months if they've never worked in an MSP world. So we need to plan for this. We don't want to bring somebody in and rush that onboarding and lose them out the other end. It's a very expensive exercise when we're bringing net new people in. We need to nurture them through that process, but very much so we need to make sure we've hired first on behavior and capacity to make sure they are right for the team. Then we want to be looking at capacity. This links in with your current figures of what you're actually supplying to your customers, your MRR, your NRR, your projects, etc., but also our pipeline. This is where sales links into delivery. We need to be looking at what is the capacity of the team right now against the services that we should be delivering. What do I mean by that? Well, we have MRR. If that's based on per device or per user, we need to know what our average technician is going to do per user per desktop. We need to know what our average technician is going to do per ticket. We need to know what they're going to do per project. Then we need to fill in the pipeline. What is the forecast looking like in the 3 to 6 months moving forward, or even better, onwards from that? A lot of high mature MSPs would have dates of services that they don't yet supply to that customer, but they know those third-party services will run out on these dates, and they know their percentage of win when they're looking at that from a sales pipeline point of view. All this data comes together, and now we also overlay that with our value creation plan. So if you remember, the value creation plan is our forecast over the next 12 to 24 months of all the different services and how we're going to increase them to hit our actual target of X net profit for the business. So we're getting our capacity, we're overlaying that with value creation plan, we're forward planning all of that with our pipeline. This now means that we know where we are today and where we are over the next 12 months and 24 months, aligned to all those plans, and we can watch that data on a monthly basis, and we can plan to pull the trigger on the hire that we've already designed in our organizational structure when we're ready, not after we're ready, which is what we see too often. We do it reactive, and that affects the whole process. So sales, ops, and tech, we must grow them together. What do I say here? I'm talking about maturity levels. We've talked about pipeline coming into capacity. All of this comes together. If we're not all rowing together and the elastic bands break, we start to speak different languages. You're going to have something like a sales team is mature and they're delivering certain proposals in certain ways with scope of works and delivery to them, and your technical team doesn't know how to ingest that information, and the customer's going to see an opposite journey to what they've just been promised. That's going to lead to an unhappy customer and a customer that is no more. So we need to make sure we're looking at the whole business as a whole. What's the maturity levels? What are they doing together? How are they coming together and communicating together? Or are they bashing against a brick wall? And if they're bashing, why is that? What is the communication that is lacking? It's typically communication that does this. We're not talking on the same wavelengths. The processes are broken. The information's broken. When you think about your PSA, I see too many times where we have an actual process of moving something from sales to operations to invoicing, and what we actually do is break that elastic band and manually move it to the next step. That causes those communication issues. So we need to make sure we're taking out all the business from maturity level 2 to 3 to 4 and making sure that everyone is aligned with where we're going, what it looks like, what does success look like, and what is our customer journey going to look like because of this. This then means that we've got a successful business that is repeatable, the engine is there, and now we can put our foot down. My suggested next step here is we get our leadership together. We do an off-site strategic meeting, but we're very much focusing on where are the maturity levels. Map out all the different functions in your business and map 5 different maturity levels, and then agree on where you are today. And take everything from a 1 to a 2, a 2 to a 3. Map those actions out and deliver that consecutively over the next 12 months, and it will make a massive difference to your business. We've talked about org structure and planning that for the next 12, 36 months. We need to also make sure we're keeping our good hires. Best people don't leave because of money. They leave because there is no forward planning. They don't know what success looks like today and where they are going to go over the next period. Myself, I've had too many white envelopes of resignations because people don't know where they're going next. In my head, I knew where I was going next. They've just gone for a position that give them that I could have done that. But now this conversation's changed because they just think I'm backfilling and I'm just trying to appease them to keep them. Make sure that all your documentations around your org structure, your role profiles, all have what does good look like now? What are the capacity that you need to bring to this? Do you have extra capacity that you need to learn into? And here's the ability to do that. And also, what does good look like? Then next, we need to be, what is the next step? We think about this from a service desk because that's the easiest place that we all live in. If you're a tier one, here's the things that you need to bring to this role as knowledge and your capacity and your training. And here's the numbers that make that look good. Next step would be that you're going to move to a tier two. And a tier two needs to look like this as a base model for you to get onto that next ladder. The next maturity phase of this is taking all of that structure and actually building out salary bands. Actually making sure that they know where they sit in that salary band and where they can take it. You can still tweak those salary bands on an individual basis, but this means that everybody knows where they are today, what they need to do to work, what they need to do to feel good every day, and where they're going next. So we've talked about development and that actually retainment of people, but actually I really believe that we should also do other things around fun and structure inside the business. You yourself don't want to come to a business every day where you're just grinding all the time. Let's have some fun about this. I talk about, I don't want fun at the end of this when I retire and we cash in on it. The goal is to have fun as we're doing this and really push that within the business. A lot of people talk about culture. Dave Wicks, in our recent podcast, talked about culture. He actually said,
can we swear on this podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's bullshit. There's no book that can tell you culture because it's not your own, right? I don't care what some guy did in 1984 to build his business and he built a culture. Like, that's great. Wham was popular. Hey, everybody was happy. We played it in the office every day and we were happy.
I agree with him. The culture isn't what I wish it is, isn't what I think it is. It isn't a dream of I want a culture to look like this. It's actually what it is day to day. What does that mean? It means your hiring process. You need to make sure you're hiring for that culture. What do those people look like? I know an individual who runs a business that actually explicitly says, we do these two things twice a year. They're away, they're off camp, they're non-negotiable. We're away for a week. Would you do that? If you answer no, you're not a part of the team, because that is so critical to his team that you're a part of those events. You're a part of that team that's going to drive the business forward. So think about that when you've got your area in your offices. Do you want a pool table? Do you want a bar? Do you want a coffee stop? What do you want where people are going to go, relax, create an atmosphere, have a bit of fun? Bringing those teams together outside of that daily process will mean they will communicate better in that process and in that structure. I always think it's best in our consulting world when I've met people personally. Even though you're on Teams and you've got that video and you've still got that interaction, you lose so much. Think about that in your teams. How are you going to create a structure of them working together? We have another client that we recently did a podcast with, and they talked about having teams and structuring teams about actual channels that are hobbies and things that people want to talk about.
That was something he had to go and do. And I was behind him 110%. I said, Tommy, go and do it. Go and do it. Travel the world. The world is your oyster. It's not all IT there. Go off and experience what you need to. And he did. He went off and had a great time, experienced it, and brilliant, because look, it's added huge amounts of value, because now Tommy's got all these presenting skills and things like that, that he's and confidence as well. So that he's built up.
And so then if you've got a hobby of car mechanicking, doing Lego, whatever it may be, you can link up with like-minded people inside your business and spend time with them that's agreed. You're not trying to bunk off and spend 15 minutes at the coffee station and not do no work. This is a part of your job now. We want you to come together. We want you to use facilities. We want you to have fun. People stay for that type of environment. I worked at an MSP for a long time, and I always say, I stayed there because of the environment, the people that run it, the culture that was there, not because of my salary. Think about that when you're running your business. Why would you stay in your business? The number one problem we see with growth is the owner bottleneck problem. We all do this as owners. We're all passionate about what we do. We're all capable probably of doing what we do as a business. We didn't start this business because someone said you're an amazing leader, finance person, and you're going to go and drive a business. They basically said you're a great technician, which probably means you know how to do most of the jobs in your business. We need to think about this when we're growing. Typically, that owner bottleneck is the biggest problem. Either we're too hands-on in the business, we're too much firefighting, there's too many answers that have to come to you to be answered, or your ability hasn't grown. Your leadership structure, your finance knowledge, your understanding of how to drive the business hasn't grown at the same scale as your business needs. At that point, we have to decide, are we going to continue on this pathway, or I'm going to hire and make myself redundant from that? Most people want to continue on that pathway, and they have the ability to do that. They just haven't spent the time to drive that forward and that training and push forward. So when we think about this owner bottleneck, we only have 60 hours a week. We need to really deliver this down. Great topic here is having 2 sheets of paper, as I've mentioned, writing down what you need to be doing and writing down what you're doing, what you aren't supposed to be doing. Now we create a full plan, an action plan of my next level. So who are the people that report to you? What are their weaknesses? What are their skills? And how can you delegate those tasks down with a bit of training, understanding, documentation, SOPs, whatever it may be. And then we go through a full delegation process. We walk that through those 4 steps. Currently, you don't know what you don't know. I'm going to show you how to do this. You're going to watch me how to do this. We're going to complete documentation together. My quick perk here is they write the documentation, not you. You will write documentation and you will skip bits because it's in your head. If they write documentation from watching you, that does 2 things. 1, stops you skipping those bits. Secondly, make sure that they have actually watched you do it. They've not zoned out because they are having to watch you to make sure they document it. The next step is, I'm going to watch you. We're going to use that documentation. I'm going to watch you. We're going to make sure we follow it. We're going to make sure there's no missing steps. We're going to make sure it's very clear. You understand your boundaries. Now you're going to go off and do that yourself on the 3rd step, and I'm going to be here, but I'm only going to be here when you ask me to. And then the 4th step, I completely step away. You take that now to the next level. I expect you to make it better, different, however it is. All we're going to do is manage outcomes. This is key. We don't want to be managing every single step of something that I've now delegated. That's not helping us. That's interfering. That's actually minute managing. That's not going to save our time. So we need to make sure we're managing from outcomes, especially in this new world where we've got teams everywhere, we've got remote teams, etc. We don't want to be managing them. We want to say, here's a timeline, here's the outcomes, here's the minimal viable product. No, you can take that on. I want you to make it better. I just want those outcomes from this, and make sure that is delivered. And make sure they know where that timeline is. Make sure they know where that delegation pathway is. Make sure they know their judge box. We've talked about judge box before. So judge box is the things inside that box are things that they can do on their own. Things outside that box, I expect you to come and ask me a question. You may just get a one-worded answer, or I may show you how to do it. Then over time, we're going to make that box bigger. That box is going to get bigger. Your role is going to get bigger. You're going to mature as an individual, and you're going to progress within this business. And it means I can step away. Key thing here is, have in your head, I want to make myself redundant. You're not actually making yourself redundant. You're just making it so you have capacity to do the next things that are going to move this business forward. As you grow as a business, you need to mature into a different leader, a different structure, a different understanding of what's going to go on. That needs time to do that. So we need to make ourselves redundant on the actions we're doing today. When we're thinking about this delegation plan, a key pitfall that we see is not sticking to it. So creating this plan of what I do now and what I need not to do, and understanding what that plan needs to be a minimum of 30 days. Understanding what you do on a daily basis is not just a daily task. It's not a one-day task. We need to make sure we capture everything. Now we need to create a plan. That needs to be smart, actionable actions. Smart, look like up, measurable, attainable, time, specific. We need to make sure we know exactly what we want to do so we can hold ourselves accountable. If you can't hold yourself accountable, bring the leadership team into this. Help everybody to be accountable. When you're in those leadership meetings, everyone should be equal. They should be able to pull you up on the fact that those actions have not been done. Be very clear about it. As soon as you communicate to someone you're going to do something, there is a better chance that you're going to deliver it. Another great tip here is keep it in those 30 days, maybe a quarter, definitely not above a quarter. When I was facilitating peer groups, that was a key criteria we had. As soon as somebody said, I've got this action and I'm going to do it all over the year, I can guarantee towards the end of that year, after telling us all year that it was on track, they would tell us it's off track. You've just lost a whole year. You've not actually got out and asked for help. Doing quarterly or monthly, it means we can pivot quickly, we can be accountable, we can understand the differences. And remember, constant adaptation, there's nothing wrong with that. If we change those smart actions, it's not a failure as long as we're changing them for the right reasons because there's change in the business. We've talked about your MSP growth stalling on how we can't just rely on relationships and referrals and we need the sales engine. I want to dig into that a bit more. We see successful MSPs. What I mean by that, success can come from all different ways, depends what your success metric is. These MSPs wanted the growth. So when we think about MSP growth, the average MSP growing is less than 5%. Those that are really growing, when you look at SLI and best in class, they're around the 12 and 14. Then we've got the people that are really excelling above that into the 20s. Typically though, those people that are growing at the 20s are doing that because they're really small in revenue, and it's obviously a lot easier to compound that revenue when it's small, or they're buying and building. So they're buying those client bases, and that's why they're doing the 20% growth. But do you want, and are you achieving that 12 to 14% growth? That comes from having a really good sales engine, but also having that understanding in the business that sales is non-negotiable. It comes first. What do I mean by that? If you've only got those 60 hours a week, that you're actually trying to do, how would you carve those 60 hours up? Well, the biggest priority should be anything that drives revenue. And those guaranteed drives definitely need to be on your radar. They need to be the thing you spend the most time on. If you're going to work on anything today, it should be what's going to drive the business forward. And the most time that is about driving it forward from a revenue and a profitability point of view. So we need to have a big focus on marketing and sales, create that as a repeatable engine. That also leads into service. In my MSP that I had, we talked about how if sales needed a pre-sales, they needed a sales technical expert, they needed someone to go to a prospect meeting, they needed an audit completed, which meant we would win a new customer. It's non-negotiable that technical turn around and say, but we're busy. You can have that in 2 weeks' time. That doesn't work when we think about a sales journey. We need to respond to a prospect when they are hot, when they are in need, when they're in pain, when they're ready to move. That changes daily. We can't wait 2 weeks for our technical person to give us the understanding and that knowledge of how we're going to fix that pain, so then I can go back as a salesperson to deliver that. 2 weeks is gone. Somebody else has filled that spot. The other problems come in. The customer's moved on to something else. The customer goes quiet. That kills the sales engine and the journey. We need to make sure sales is the non-negotiable. Same when we look at budgets. Are we going to spend our money on the thing that's going to drive the business forward, or are we spending it on shiny toys, shiny tools, shiny people that sit in technical that are not yet needed? We need to be spending our money in the right places, sales and marketing. And that doesn't just mean you go off the next new thing that you hear. Look at those strategies that work consistently in businesses that do sales and marketing and replicate them. Do as you're told. You don't know better. Don't compare yourself just to your peers. Speaking of peers, let's think about peer groups. Anyone that knows me, I'm passionate about peer groups and community. You don't know what you don't know. If you sit in isolation in your business, that is expensive. You're learning from your own mistakes. You're taking the business in directions that you don't know you shouldn't go. You're thinking you know better, or you're thinking you've read something. Go and speak to peers. Make it so it's an open, safe environment of you speaking to your competitors that aren't really competitors. They're either nowhere near you in your location, or there is so many fish in the sea, so many customers, so many potential customers, that it doesn't matter that you're speaking to people. I was in a group of peers for over 9 years. 5 of them was in London. They could literally walk to each other's offices, and there was never a problem of talking about anything in their businesses. If anything, they helped each other sometimes when they had prospects and they needed somebody to quote for another. Of course, maybe that was a bit controversial, but that's what they did. Thinking about peer groups. So in the Dave Wicks episode that I've mentioned, Tim BW talked about peer groups.
With peer groups is the complete key, as you said. Like, it really is important to take advantage of that community. People who will go years on years without being able to get past a certain hurdle can unlock it in over a course of a couple of weeks or a couple of months with people who have already been there previously. So I think it's really important to that if you're not part of that today, one of the takeaways to definitely get involved, whichever one you feel best suits what you're trying to achieve.
What he sees in the customers he's worked with when they actually have been involved in peer groups, we see exactly the same. We do a lot of migrations of PSA, for instance, from one PSA to another PSA. One of the actual criteria that we take from you when you come into a kickoff meeting is, are you involved in a peer group? Do you actually match yourself against some sort of framework? Do you do SLI? Those are one of the 3 questions we dictate that those consultants need to ask you. Why do we ask that? Because we know off the back of that, you're going to need longer implementation. You're going to understand some of the data points. You're going to need some of that complexity in your PSA because you're going to be driving your business off that data, and probably every quarter you need to submit those figures to your peer group. So we already know that that's going to be a need. So we take that from the implementation and make sure we deliver it back to you. That just shows how critical it is that you're involved in a peer group. If you're not involved in peer groups and communities, go and get involved. Go and do as you're told from those peer groups. But I have a caveat. Don't just stay in those peer groups. Make sure you're opening your mind elsewhere. If you're sat in a group of peers and you're getting information, that's great. But that's one pond. Make sure you go and live in different ponds. From my experience of doing the consulting over the last 5 years, one of the things I've learned is I thought I knew quite a lot about the MSP world and a lot of people in the MSP. I then go into a different pond, maybe that's because of a different vendor or a different location, and I end up then seeing nobody that I know. There's whole different ponds, there's whole different ways of running businesses. One of my mentors once said to me, be careful what you wish for, Darren. And what he meant there was, if you want a business that is doing this turnover as this amount of people, and you've got a business that looks like this today, decide which one you want, because if you move to it, you might regret it. So just be careful what you wish for, be careful what you do in your business, and peer groups is very powerful. Wait, before you go, I made a video about everything you need to know as an MSP. We talk about the events you need to know about, the vendor moves that you want to care about, and what's around the corner. And as normal, we give away some free tools.